peeps? Seamus here. Going solo today. No Marcos. He's enjoying a little bit of a vacation right before the 4th is when this recording's happening. This is a continuation of our Cenegenics guest series, and I am super stoked to be here with our guest, Sherri Jarvis. I'm going to do a little bit of an intro, but also just at the same time, I want to let you guys know that I asked for this conversation specifically because I'm very curious about Sherri. She's out in Phoenix. She manages as a performance health coach out there, and I've always tried to see her when I go out there for any conferences or anything like that. But quite honestly, even though Sherri and I have been working together for some time, I'd love to see her career in Cenegenics. Curious just about her training, her lifespan, health span kind of approach, and where she's at. But Sherri, would you mind just introducing yourself a little bit, who you are, how you got into this field, and kind of like how you ended up in Cenegenics, and we'll just kind of continue the casual conversation there.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, hi, everybody. So my background is it was in physical education, academic-wise, and then I got my master's in exercise physiology. And so I've always had an interest. I was a youth athlete, always had an interest along the lines of sports. Went to Baylor University, and that's where I got my education. But outside of that, when you first take on your first jobs, it's personal training, it's fitness instructor. One of my most favorite areas of interest was cardiac rehabilitation. And so that's what really got me into the interest in medical field. I find it fascinating to see what the body can do, and always interested in the cardiac area. I also did a little bit of teaching in the community college that's local here. But what got me into Cenegenics was kind of fluky in a way. I wasn't looking for this originally. A friend of mine, a co-personal trainer, interviewed for a position that had opened up here in Phoenix. And she went through the interview, but it wasn't meeting her needs as far as what she was looking for into a job. But she thought the position was so good that somebody in her circle of personal training friends would probably like this. And so when she told me about it, I thought, wow, that gets me back to my roots. I mean, that's what I was in school for. A lot of exercise testing, working with people, and I'm more on the science of things. So I pursued it. I put out a resume together, which I had not done in years. That was kind of interesting. And reached out to the doctor here at our center, and we had a great conversation over the phone. Asked me to come on in, and before I knew it, he was like, hey, let's do a 90-day trial here. So I've been here since, and it's been almost 10 years now. It was 10 years in January.
10 years in January. Congratulations. Wow, that's amazing. 10 years ago, I think I was just starting my understanding of exercise science, probably like a freshman in college or something. So you got your master's in Baylor. That's in Texas, right?
Yes.
Master's in exercise physiology. Can you go over that a little bit? Like, what was that process like going through your master's? What did you study a lot of? And in exercise phys at this time, were you studying more like physiology, like the heart?
Yes, and yes. And kind of, it's different. It has really molded into much more than what I did it as. I would be honest. I mean, if I was really going to be true with you, I bet what I got as a master's was probably what you got as a BS at a university.
Yeah.
Because exercise science, which is probably the equivalent of what my master's was, it has elevated so much more. There is so much more information now. There is so much more science people are doing in research. When I went through school, the term wellness was just coming out. That whole idea of the whole person. It was just hitting. It was the 80s. It was what was coming out of that time was less about the nitty gritty of formulating people's workouts and nutrition. Nutrition science was there, but it wasn't to the level it is today.
Yeah.
So this field has really grown, and that's part of the reason why it keeps me in too. It's fascinating what I am learning still in this field. So even though I've got, some certifications and there's credentials and things like that, it is such a forward thinking area and super fun to be a part of. But there was a lot of exercise testing. I mean, we were doing then what we're doing today, but it is just better. It is
Yeah.
just to another level.
What would you say? I've got two questions for you. I'll follow up, but what would you say some of the testing that were done back then, like 80s, 90s, that to now are still like they still stand strong and is still validated by the science, and whatever science is put on top of that testing, you're just like it gets even better every year. What have you seen gets better?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I started doing body fat, okay,
Hmm.
it was calipers. It was the pinching. And that's how we did all the measurements was through calipers. And that's horrible. I mean, you know it now. It's just every person is so different. You cannot grab a good measure, especially on somebody who's got a very thick thigh, let's just say. You
Yeah,
can, if they're not squishy, you cannot get a good pull. So that has the whole idea of a DEXA scan now, and now
yeah,
there's the in bodies, and there's just a lot of other stuff out there now that really I've seen that one just keep changing over the years. I mean, we went to impedance machines, those handheld things. Um, that one now has changed a ton. The VO2, I mean, we did the bike test, but back at that point in time, you had to manually turn the gauge to up the tension on a bike. It wasn't controlled by a computer. You did it all
yeah,
manually.
yeah.
Uh, you took their heart rate on their wrist while they were at the end of every minute. I mean, it
Yeah.
was very different in that respect. Now, if we ever got accurate numbers, I don't know that we did, but that was the way we did it.
That's so funny that you say that because I remember when I started doing my testing of like the Bruce test, I believe, or like the lactate testing on a treadmill, like the 1 mile run test. I remember like blood pressure cuffs, one person checking the pulse, one person looking at my breathing, one person manually changing the treadmill because it was an older treadmill, right? Because at the university they still use whatever whatever
Yeah.
equipment they gave you at the university, and then lactate, and then someone has to prick your finger, but that was like given to the professor because the professor's like, all right, like I'm the one that has to be the one that draws the blood. And it was like 7 people on you just to like run 1 mile. And
You
now it's
probably
just like,
felt like a rat.
yeah, I definitely did. Cause I remember, I don't know if I have a photo of it, but I think someone took a video of it. And I remember like one person had like an RPE scale. So there's like 7 people on you, like, where are you at? Someone doing this and then someone doing that. And I was just like, dude, I'm just trying to run. And that was just 10 years ago. But like in that time, the VO2 for sure has changed. Like it's a 1 person show. You could do all that in like a split second without any mistakes, primarily,
Yeah.
because it's all pretty much automated. Like it's so cool how automation has definitely helped the field. Um, yeah, no, that's great. It's the calipers though. That's definitely something I wouldn't have thought you would have answered.
Oh, that is one of the probably the best changes I've seen is in the whole body composition.
When you were a personal trainer, were you doing a lot of that, like on the fitness floor? Like, all right, we got to get you, and you're getting like on the floor, and it's just like such an awkward conversation with people.
Oh, it is. I mean, things like even when I did some work at the college, I did some work in the fitness center there,
Yeah,
and we had no access to fancy equipment. So you did the box step, 3 minute step up, step down. I mean,
the
that was the
YMCA.
yeah, basically
Oh,
that type
yeah.
of test where it's just the 3 minute step. And again, is it really how valid is it? So there's a lot of wonderful changes that have happened over the years. Definitely improvements.
It definitely has. And your background is in physical education. So this, I want to go further. I'm going to go back a few steps. Like when you're thinking physical education, you got your BS in that. Were you thinking like, oh, I'm going to be a PE teacher?
That's what's so funny. I never had an interest in teaching.
Okay.
So I knew that getting a physical education, I liked it for the topic, but I was never really interested in teaching at a public school
Okay.
situation. So I kind of knew going into it, and I had a good counselor who, at that time, the master program was just getting developed, and so he had said, "Hey, by the time you graduate, we're going to have this next program ready. And
Yeah.
it's an exercise physiology, it's taking it to the next level. And so I always had my eyes set on that. My sister was a teacher. She was a phys ed teacher.
Okay.
And the stories that she would tell me was
I
enough
would
to
love,
say, I don't
I
want
would
to
love,
teach.
yeah, I would love to hear that. First off, dealing with kids, I mean, it's hard, whatever age group it is, whether it's teens to young. But second, talking about testing, the physical education testing that we did back in the day was, I don't know, what were your thoughts on it?
Was it? I mean, when I was a kid, we did the presidential physical fitness. I don't even know if they still do it anymore.
That was the one where like they did like the push-ups, pull-ups, back extensions, 1 mile run, things like that, right?
Throw, I think that maybe you threw something, but yeah, yeah, there was a half a dozen different things you did as a kid. But I will have to say, the funny thing is though, that over time and my knowledge that keeps growing, my comfort with people, I like to make the connection. I have really started to enjoy the teaching element. So what
Mm,
was funny, what I thought I did not want to do, I actually enjoy doing now. I mean, that's what I mean. Like I said, I got into the community college,
yeah,
and that's a whole different ballgame at that level because you don't deal with parents. You're dealing with kids. I want to say kids, but they're really young adults.
yeah,
So
yeah,
most of them are there for the most part because they want to be there. Yeah, there's
yeah.
a few outliers, but nevertheless, it's a different vibe. It's a different situation when you get to working with 18 to 20-year olds.
Yeah.
So that I enjoyed actually pretty much. But even today, if I have an opportunity to sit and talk, and I love kind of like small groups,
Yeah.
put 20 people around me and we can talk a topic. That I enjoy now. And that's kind of what I enjoy, the fact that even with Cenegenics, um, I may not have a group, but I get the attention of one person face to
Hmm.
face, and we get to have a conversation about whatever it is,
No, I love
with
that.
their health, their
Yeah.
nutrition. What are the trends? Why do I need to debunk this? This is a myth. This is the truth. This is, and then it gets personal when you get to work with somebody one to one, because then their examples and everything is really more about them.
Yeah.
And then when you know their medical background and their goals, well, then you can teach it in a way that really applies to them, and that's fun. I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, that's what I love about the Cenegenics model is that comprehensive N of one, right? There's one thing you said there is, and I want to kind of touch on this is the myths or these fads, where Cenegenics has probably lived through all these fads in the last 30 years. I want to ask you, what have you seen as fads that you'd had to debunk? Because you've been in this field for some time. Fitness and nutrition go hand in hand, obviously. So like you've seen probably both, like a fitness fad and then a nutrition fad. What did you find that like when you were going through just your education, or even just not even having an educational background, but just being like, that is so dumb. Just your gut reaction. What did you have? What have you seen in the in? I mean, it's endless now with social media, but when you were coming up,
Well, I would have to say, what cracks me up are the nutritional fads.
mm,
There's all these trendy diets. They all have these little catchy titles with their little nuance. With every one that somebody brings up, they have their niche. There's something about it. They're cutting out a macronutrient, or they got to have a high amount of this, or they got to, take this out, or I got to eat 20 of these things and 10 of those things. And, the funny thing is, though, if everybody just kind of stepped back and got out of the diet mentality and just looked at what is the common thread among almost all these diets that have been over the last 20, 30 years, probably beyond. They all say cut out your sugar, cut out processed foods, eat more whole food, and exercise. I mean, that's kind of the baseline. I mean, I think
yeah,
if you pulled up any particular diet, and I'm just kind of thinking through my head here, they all kind of say the same thing. Now,
yeah,
back 30 years ago, um, that was when the craze of low fat to no fat
Oh yeah.
That was all the, that was kind of in the 80s going into the 90s where everything was fat free. And
Yeah.
then that's when they added sugar to everything so it would taste good. Well, then we are living the epidemic of today's problems of back then because the sugar has gotten so out of control. So before that fat free world, diets may have looked a little different. I mean, there was, the beach diet, the grapefruit diet. There's, when I was in my cardiac rehab days, Dr. Dean Ornish was like the leading diet at that point in time. Um, and Atkins diet. Those were the two
Right.
big ones. And you probably still have heard of Atkins, and that one's still relatively up there as one of the popular ones. Um, but you get down to it, it's some of the things is it doesn't change.
Yeah.
Nutrition science is how you're going to have energy to do whatever it is. If you want sustainability, long-term exercise, or you need something for you're a soccer player, you need quick energy. You might eat a little differently, but the basics are the basics.
Yeah.
Health for health. There's just some things that just are what they are, and you don't have to put a new label on it. You don't have to make it shiny by all of a sudden say you got to do it this way or that way, and you got to change your macros, and you got to do it this way, and it's got to be more, you know.
We're
Whole
human
food.
beings. We like complexity. We
Oh
like
yes, we
complexity
do.
to we like complexity to justify that we're doing something important. When at the end of the day, the simple thing probably, does the thing. Like we have to make it so complex to be like I'm doing something important. When at the end of the day, it's like look, just do what you're supposed to do. Stick to it, and over time, I think you'll be fine. No, that's funny. That's kind of hilarious. I mean, I think I've lived through a few of those diets. The biggest one when I was kind of coming up was like the paleo, and then the
Yeah.
keto kind of thing, and then the intermittent fasting kind of thing. I mean, those have been around for a long time, but like they have their ebbs and flows and all these things. No, I love this. And when it comes to the diet and stuff like that, I want to kind of switch the conversation here. Is where do you feel Cenegenics has fit in society and people kind of around these things? Like, how do you define Cenegenics kind of responding to what's been going on in the world as just the biggest health crisis that we've seen is obviously obesity being this consistent grade up. I made a little chat GPT trend from the 1950s. One of our coaches, Jason, who had been previously on the episode, um, he goes, hey, can you put a graph against obesity against the 1950s to now to where food that's ultra processed has increased or like how much ultra processed food has now been introduced to the market and then the obesity trends they literally lined up both just they
Oh
both
yeah.
lined up together. And then I kept on asking you other questions. You talked about physical education, PE. I said, hey, can you also show me the trend for the amount of PE classes being canceled across the nation? And
Mhm.
that also was a trend going up meaning like it was getting canceled. And then one more trend was like home economics or cooking classes.
Mhm.
And that trend also went up. So it was like, it's a very, from a high level thought, it's not just the food, it's also the environment, it's also the culture, it's also the education, and it's also how do I say this? But I don't want to go too far into this field, but it's also from the higher ups in the political field
Oh yeah.
of what they're asking the country to do for our children, or where we're at. And so, again, back to that question: where do you think Cenegenics kind of gets this? What Cenegenics likes to do with people as a combating a way to for health, like just getting people to healthy, but then like what our bread and butter is lifespan, health span.
Yeah. Well, I will say this: Cenegenics, as you know, has been around for about 27 years, and at that point in time, it was very forward thinking. I think they were so much further ahead in looking at preventative care, preventative health, um, much more than the mainstream. I think the way people thought about medicine. So they were the forefront. I mean, they were ahead and they were looking at what can we start doing to taking care of ourselves before there is sickness, before there is illness. And as you can see today, Now, fast forward here we go, 25, 27 years later, there's a lot more people taking interest in that.
Yeah.
Concierge medicine wasn't really heard of so much back then. Today, it's very common. People are looking because they want to live quality life. They want to, and I think the baby boomers are the ones that 60s and 70-year-olds. They're the ones that are not slowing down. They're the ones that want to keep traveling. They want to be proactive with grandkids. They keeping their jobs. They want to. I mean, they want to still feel alive.
Yeah.
And with that, it takes much more of a proactive approach. So it's really been embraced, I think, by that boomer generation to really pick up on this and go.
Yeah.
Cenegenics just, fortunately, they had the vision, and now other people have really jumped on board with this vision, medical wise. Even doctors and other, medical practice healthcare providers are also seeing it, and that's why you see a lot more competition. You see, a lot more other people have options now,
Yeah.
and so I do think people are at that point now that traditional medicine, if I can make this analogy, think of banking and investing money. Your bank is there, like your doctor is always going to be there, okay, your primary care. You go in if you want to get money, you go in if you want to put money into it. You may go there if you need a loan. They're there when you need them, but it's not really doing anything with your money other than holding it. But they'll do the job. If you have a financial advisor, you want investment. You want somebody who's going to grow your money. You want somebody who is going to have your best interest based off your lifestyle and what you want for the future. Somebody's going to help see a vision that is 20, 30, 40 years ahead of you. And that's somebody who's proactive. That's getting ahead of the game and let the compounding take its place so that down the road, you're going to have a nice financial bucket. And so people want that in their health now. I mean, they're not necessarily as content just to kind of be, I'll go if I have to go, fine. But there's a lot of people who want to be proactive. But I
Yep.
will say, unfortunately, and you kind of touched on this, are a bit of political. The big pharma companies, the insurance companies, they've got such a hold on what the average person can do and afford
Mm-hmm.
that it makes it difficult for people to want to be proactive. Um,
Yeah.
at least to be able to join in on some of these more medical concierge type medicine practices.
Yeah.
But we've always said, even the doctor here and I, we always talk about anyone's best defense of the cost of medical care is taking care of yourself. If you can start when if somebody's younger and will look at how they're eating, looking at their lifestyle choices, what they're putting in their bodies, what they're doing with their bodies, if they can get the message young and really take care of themselves, you are so much further ahead than the person that thinks, what the heck? I'm feeling
Yeah.
good. I'm invincible. I
Yeah.
won't worry about that for 30 more years.
I
You know.
love that. I've clipped a few of these pointers just because, first off, I love that analogy. I've never kind of heard it like that, the way you said it. Hey, you have your bank there. It's always there. But if you don't have your investment, it's not going to be there in 20, 30 years. And that's the whole point with Cenegenics is like you kind of have a financial advisor, actually like a
Mhm.
whole team, like a performance health
Yeah.
team. You got that physicians, the performance health coach, and your coordinator, but also at the same time, you're not just stuck to that performance health team in that center. You have the knowledge gap that you may have of over 27 plus years and over tons of doctors across the nation, performance health across the nation that we do. And that's really where it is. And I love the fact that you hit on that. Like, look, finances is there. Obviously, everyone's got to make a buck. Everyone's got to do their thing. People are out here working their butts off. Sometimes they might not be able to get the concierge medicine, but you know what? you could still kind of come into a Cenegenics. You might just do a la carte things or whatever,
Absolutely.
but the things that you can access to are there, and your health, you can access it right now. You can decide right now to do what you need to do. And you know that the person listening here, whether that's, hey, we need to make just an adjustment in our nutrition, or we need to make an adjustment in our lifestyle, whether that's like, hey, I need to watch my stress or sleep, or make an adjustment to exercise. Um, I think that's always there. And I think the doctors, we know this, we know that. And I think we need to keep pushing that message out there and give power back to the people in their own health and in
Mhm.
their own thing, and not realize like, look, you don't have to be financially burdened with your next medical bill, because you actually could bounce back. You did the strength training so that at 70, if you fall, you're like, it's just a bruise. It wasn't a broken hip. It wasn't,
Right.
that because you did the work. Or, hey, um, like, you don't have to take the metformin because, you regularly go for walks and you have a good amount of, nutrition, restriction, or like, lifestyle that you can sustain. I like that. I really do. I want to continue here more so on that Cenegenics, your position right there in Phoenix, and kind of what it means to be a performance health coach, what it's been like over the last 10 years for you, and how you feel like the field has evolved in the last 10 years, like your position being a performance health coach. Like, obviously it goes back to the basics: fitness, nutrition, coaching. But what are some things that you've learned? Maybe you've been enlightened, or you can even teach me, a young and up and coming coach as well, of these are the things that I've seen in the trenches, and these are the things that I've changed my mind on, or even just, double down on, whatever that is. I'd love to just kind of hear that.
All right. See if I can remember what all you just said there. But I will say one of the things that I will say about the position of being a performance health coach, especially in this environment, how much value a health coach brings to the table. I think everybody, patients, always admire and look up to the doctors. What do the doctors have to say? Obviously they're educated. They know. They very well diverse in the different conditions, health conditions. Health coaching is a relatively newer field, and so a lot of people don't know what are you? Are you a trainer? Are you what is your background? Sometimes I think I'm a nurse, and it is like, no, I'm not a nurse. But when you start to talk with them and whatnot, the idea of what a coach can bring to the table is, one, we build relationship. And a lot of people don't get that so much in today.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as a general statement, people need community, and their health is such a priority. And so to find somebody who will walk the walk with them, who they can just kind of brainstorm, talk through, troubleshoot. I've tried this does not work. I've tried that, it helped a little bit. I hear about this, what do you think? Um, but the thing I love the most about what I do is the building the relationship with the people towards their goals.
Yeah.
And there's something very rewarding in that. Um, and it's exciting to get excited with them, along the
Yeah.
way. Um, so I think there's a great value in terms of the health coach position, especially working alongside with the doctor. I
Hmm.
know I feel like in our office anyway, we're very much a team approach. And I love it. I get to sit down with the doctor, with the patient, and we talk as a triangle. We're three people, and we come together and discuss whatever's on the table there, that they're, the particular questions and needs. And, we talk about test results, and,
Yeah.
doctor will bring in much more of a clinical approach. I'll bring in much more of the lifestyle approach.
Yeah.
And then the patient can sit there and just, absorb and process, ask questions. How do I apply this? And, and that's the great part of it is, and there's no
Yeah.
timetable. When
Yeah.
a patient comes in for their exam, there is nobody else here that day. They have all of our attention.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
they don't get that anywhere else.
They don't get
In
that. And
some
just
office.
to make that point, we've hired some amazing doctors, and here in the LA area, we got a doctor who will be on the pod as well. They're in the UCLA family medicine, 15 minutes with a patient.
Yeah.
But I asked them, like, is it truly 15 minutes? He's like, no, it's 7 to 8. And then it's like 8 of the last minutes. I got to do like the notes. So it's
Wow.
not that. And he's like, this is why I really love the concierge medicine, because you and I can spend the whole time together and get really granular about
Yeah.
everything. Because I really feel that even a friend said this to me once, where he went into a doctor, his own primary care physician, not in a system or anything, like his own private practice kind of doctor. And he was like, he still felt like he went in there and it felt like a drug deal. He's like, yeah, the guy was just like, yeah, just take this. And I was like, I was here for 7 minutes. You didn't even ask me anything about my life
Yeah.
style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where you get to know the person better, and it is. It's not just, hey, here's a prescription because you have that symptom. It's,
Yeah.
well, why do you have that symptom?
Yeah.
Let's get to the root cause of that symptom. What can we do to help that may not necessarily require a pill? Maybe it's something about, hey, let's get out and get some walking and get some fresh air and clear the head, clear the mind, get some circulation. Every person is different. That's what's also unique and enjoyable about this. I mean, we have the person really who is completely out of shape and maybe lacks the knowledge of what to do, to we have some high end athletic people. So you get the scope of health coming through the
Yeah.
doors here. We get the scope of age. I've been surprised. I think the youngest we had was about 28.
Hmm.
And I think the oldest we have currently is 88.
Wow.
That
And
is
that
a
88-year-old's beating that 28-year-old. That's the Cenegenics plan.
so it's we kind of get it all, hear it all,
Yeah.
and their needs are all different,
Yeah.
and that's great. We get to, like I say, it's customized, it's personalized.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I love the fact that you brought up like this field of health coaching. It's very, people don't know it yet. I don't think people, even myself, still quite understand it, even though I'm becoming board certified in that like in 2 weeks. Because it's weird where you play this clinical role, like you understand all the things a doctor would understand clinically, obviously not to their level, but enough to have a conversation. And then, but you're also like playing that role of like a psychologist or like a therapist, um, being there. And then at the same time, just being like, all right, let's talk about fitness and nutrition. The things that get you excited around the Cenegenics program. So it's really cool. I want to ask you this: we've seen kind of like the 27 years Cenegenics been here. That you're talking about this new health coach initiative. What Cenegenics has done. We want to take people from amazing, good to great, and we have a gambit of folks. What do now people have these options. What do you see for people, the field? Like, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like, do you think, in this field of longevity, health span, lifespan, whatever it is? What do you feel has been the trend, or what do you feel like will become the trend in the next 5, 10 years with this stuff?
well, several thoughts come to my head right away. AI is definitely going to be much more a part of, I think, some of our results in terms of explanation to tests. I mean, right now we see there's Prenuvo for full
Hmm.
body imaging. We've got Clearly for the cardiovascular health. I think the gadgets, the all the tracking devices.
Yeah.
People have, the watch is very, very common right now, but I think we're going to see a lot more of different types of ways, either more modalities, or these watches and the rings and other devices are going to get smarter. I mean, they're going to be able to do more. I mean, I think I heard that the iPhone, not the iPhone, iWatch is about to come out with a blood pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to do it. I don't know the
Yeah.
science or the technology behind that. But if people can start doing this stuff and start tracking their own numbers on their own, a lot of people, and again, they've got to be motivated to do this, but there's a lot people can do for themselves. Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of nice that they can track. I mean, obviously, you're going to need a doctor to check in to say, hey, if you got high blood pressure, we got to monitor that. And we got to check and see how that could be affecting other parts of your health. But in the meantime, for the next 3 months, can you track the blood pressure for me? Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and, once a day, what do what is it? Your sleep quality. So there's a lot there, I think, in terms of technology that is really going to be helpful.
Yeah.
That's coming down the pipeline. I'm not as tech savvy. I know some of you health coaches and my peers are much more knowledgeable and aware of what's out there than I am. But I do know that it's going to have, I think, an impact, a positive impact.
Yeah, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think it's a great point. I think AI technology wearables is at this point where, how to, 10 years ago, if you're in this field, like I was kind of like getting into this, you kind of were called like a biohacker or like an optimizer. And like, it was kind of weird doing all that stuff. And you had to kind of like piecemeal these things and have to buy things randomly. Now they're just part of the day to day for like a health and
Mhm.
wellness enthusiast. And I think it gets to the point where it's so adopted on three fronts: the AI, the technology, the wearables. Like it's so adopted that everybody has a wearable that they can have that's is either on their phone, or like the technology that they have that doesn't even have to be a wearable but knows everything about them, and then connecting that to like an AI unit um, around health. Because I've heard of this. I'm not so sure. Maybe it was just in passing where companies out there like maybe like Microsoft or ChatGPT where they're going to create like healthcare models around AI, and basically getting to the point where they can understand people's trends and extrapolate and understand those things way before, right? And they could look at all this data that we do, VO2, DEXA, and stuff like that, and understand, okay, like on this trend, if you don't change anything, this is what's going to
Yeah.
happen. And then it's getting to the point where it's like it pushes the technology to bounds where it's just making it faster and faster. I mean, there's one piece of technology I always get excited about, but 10 years ago when I was doing a biomechanics class, you had to download the software and you had to learn the software. And then that took like months. And then you had to figure out how to do the software and make sure you stayed in the parameters of the software. And then you could figure out biomechanics line by line. And then like a year later, I graduate that class and it's on the iPhone. Like it's on the iPhone. And then now there's a piece of technology here across this room from me that it's all there, done in 30 seconds. And what it took my peers 8 years to get a degree in physical therapy, biomechanics background, that sees in 30 seconds and knows a million data points that I will never see with my eye.
Yeah.
Um, it just kind of goes, okay, most people would be scared going like, oh man, I'm scared of AI because it's so powerful that it might take my job. No, I think it's going to offload everything that we do that's tedious. And then it's going to make the person, the human action, the connection, like you were talking about, much better. The art of coaching come up more. We don't have to get so technical. We just keep the person accountable and support and have that continuous conversation. And there's also the beauty of nuance and wisdom. As much as this piece of technology says, hey, your right knee is like this, you need to do this movement. Well, there's also the art of coaching where the coach goes like, well, this is how you want to do it. This is just giving you like a
Mm.
general recommendation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is the technology, it can be a little baffling, but it's impressive. It's incredible to see where it's going, but how it can be applied in what we do.
Yeah.
Um, so that's one reason why, again, I talk about always be a learner. I'm
Yeah.
continually teaching, and I mean, not teaching, but I'm being taught, and I'm learning all the time, constantly. A lot of it's just because of this advancement. Um,
Yeah.
I'm always the first to admit technology is not my strength, but I am always glad about learning it,
Yeah.
and because I feel like I'm going to be left out if I don't. you know,
I mean, yeah, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the moment that, AI takes over our electric cars might be a problem.
That's
You
right.
know, they start driving us off the street or whatever. But no, I definitely think so. I think learning the technology, understanding the technology, and being able to kind of just flow with it and see where it is, especially in our field with longevity and lifespan, I think it's going to be so pivotal and helpful. I love that. My question that's coming up for me, and I'm just thinking about this is, you talk about you learning, you doing your thing. My question I'm curious about is like, how do you live like a Cenegenics lifestyle? Like, how do you live lifespan, health span, what are the things that you do? It would be kind of cool to kind of pick your brain just on your personal things.
Sure. In fact, I get a lot of patients that ask me, "Do you do this?" Um, and so, yeah, proudly I can say, yeah, I incorporate this myself. If I'm preaching this, I gotta, live it myself, and I want to. Thankfully, the exercise component has always been a part of my lifestyle. I'd have to say, from youth sports and through, I've always kept an active lifestyle. It changes a lot based on the season or based on just age. I'm not much of a runner anymore. It hurts my knees. So there's transitions that you have to kind of adapt. Um, Nutrition has been, I think, one of the most fun topics to learn more and more about.
What have you
Um,
been learning recently,
oh,
or that like you like?
just, just from what I knew, like in my college years, I guess, or what I was raised with. I guess I have to be happy. My mom, when she made my lunch boxes, it was carrot strips and celery. And no other kid had to eat raw vegetables. It was like my mom was ahead of the game, if you will. Um, I never got Twinkies. I never got some of the junk food other people got. So even though I was kind of already on a good roll there, I just didn't learn nutrition as a class so much and learning about it. I loved how nutrition is fuel. I like learning more about the evidence of what it is, not just about food in of itself, but what food does for our bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
so just the whole energy component of it, how it breaks down, how we use it, how it gets stored.
Yeah.
Um, it's just a fascinating field. And so the nutrition element has been a fun one to over the years keep learning on. I always like a good book on something with the nutritional component. Um,
Any
but
any
then
favorites? Any favorites you could share with us? Maybe I'll have to go get it on Audible later.
oh, well, all I can think of right now on the top of my head is I'm reading Forever Strong right now, and she just Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and she really is promoting the whole high protein and how significant protein is in our lives, and a lot of us don't, you know, in a number of years we think we're eating enough protein, but
Yeah.
most people do not consume enough,
I
and
will
they
be
don't know
really
it.
honest with you there. Like, even though like I'm a protein forward, protein mindful person, and like this is my background, it is very difficult to get the protein recommendations that are truly the recommendations we should be getting, or the ones that are around longevity and lifespan. And Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, like I've read that book twice. I still listen to her interviews, and I'm just like, yeah, that's still tough, or that's still very like I don't think that's still the norm. Like we're healthy people. I think we digest it and accept it as like, okay, I get that. Bodybuilders probably, just athletic type people, but that's 1% of the population, truly.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the world are patients that we deal with. Um, it's difficult to get that much protein. Yeah, like what have you been learning so far in like the book, or like anything that you've been seeing there that you're like, oh, I got to incorporate a little more of that, like what she's saying.
Well, I always now kind of my guideline, if you will, when I recommend protein to people, our patients, I've always used the DEXA lean tissue as my guide for
Mm-hmm.
protein, and I've always kind of followed. As I felt it was kind of a happy balance of for every pound of muscle you have, a gram of protein should be equivalent to it.
Yep.
So somebody has 130 pounds of muscle, lean tissue. Well, 130 grams is what you should be shooting for. Now she says um, you should match a gram of protein for your ideal body weight.
Mm-hmm.
That could be higher, for that particular individual person. So I know, especially for women, it's hard enough to get protein in as it is. And she has always said it doesn't matter shape, size, male, female. Everybody should have at least 100 grams of protein. Now, that is a lot to ask for some women, small
Mm-hmm.
women. And so I will flex on that. I'm not a hardliner on that particular point that she makes. But the point, take it into the context of we all need to eat more protein than probably what we are.
Yeah.
We do need to strive for more. I don't think we realize, again, how much we do need. And
Yeah.
again, dealing with the 60, the 70s year olders, again, they're more about back in think of the 70s and the 80s, carbohydrates were the primary component of a diet.
Yeah.
It was heavy carbs. Now, I'm not talking about everything was processed, but people were big on baked potatoes. They were big on having bread. They were, pasta. It was okay to have carbs. It was what you put on it. Because remember, we
Yeah.
were all about the no fat stage. You don't want cheese. You didn't want bacon bits. You didn't want sour cream because it's the fat back then was the bad component. Um, so now she's pushing more the protein, less and less about carbs. And for those adults that come into our practice, much closer to say 65, 70 years, they're still thinking the way how they were taught or the
Yeah.
trends back when, and that's what they kind of revert to. And so for a lot of people, sometimes like, more protein? Are you serious? I
Yeah.
just I just had a conversation with one of our patients, a woman. She's probably close to 50, 45, 50. And I made the comment about her ideal weight for her is probably around 140. And she looked at me and was like, with a few choice words, what do you mean 140 grams of protein? Are you kidding me? She goes, I
Yeah.
can hardly get in 90.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's going to be my follow up. Is like obviously that patient N of one, you're going to coach her up. How do you try to get your protein in, knowing what we know now or what's been
yeah.
expanded on the literature and the way you? I mean, I know you train. We'll get on the training in a second, but like, how do you get your protein in?
Well, I've tried to tap into what I call my second circle of protein. My inner tier is what you would think of. There's the chicken, the lean piece of meat, fish, the basics, ground turkey for my tacos, your meat. Um, my second tier are things that have protein in them, but I'm not necessarily eat them very often, but I'm trying to
Mm,
eat them more often now. Yogurt, maybe edamame, more consistent with a protein shake, um, cottage cheese. Now, I know they don't sound very glamorous and like, oh, yum, let me have that. But it has definitely boosted my protein intake. And I recently did take a DEXA scan.
yeah,
And I have to say, and I have done a bit of a change up in my workouts, and we can talk about that. But I have changed my diet in the last few months to really push my protein more. And it is making a difference on the DEXA. And I'm glad
that's
to see numerically things are finally changing.
that's awesome. And there you go. You're living the life. You're reading the book. You're taking it in. You're ingesting it mentally, and now it's going physically and in your actions. That's so cool. And yeah, it must be exciting to get that progress, especially with like the DEXA results. You knowing your DEXA results for years and then going like, this one thing is finally shifting it. How has that affected your training now that you are getting more protein in and you're looking to not only just protect your lean muscle mass, but likely to put on more lean muscle mass in the right ways?
Yeah. So in my training, I have, for a long time, I've done weight training,
Yeah.
but I've been very casual about it. Once a week, twice a week, 2 sets, 1 set because I don't like it.
They,
You
they
know,
call it minimum. They call it minimum effective volume. Minimal training. Get it in, get it out.
there you go. So it was, I needed some motivation.
Yeah,
And my motivation was my son was getting married. And I needed something to kind of latch onto, knowing that there was going to be, the dance of the son and mother. There's going to be, dressing up. There was going
yeah,
to be it gave me a date. It gave me a point. So I got a little more serious. I talked to our peer friend, Jason, about workouts. He kind of got me going on the Trainer Eyes app. I started doing that on a regular basis. And I'm good with, a lot of people are. If you've got something tangible to check in with and something I got to follow, I'll follow it.
Oh yeah.
But everything else prior to that was always, what am I in the mood for today? Let's do upper body today. Let's do this. It wasn't very intentional, even though I was lifting. That's about as intentional as I got. Then I was just doing it.
Yeah.
Now I had more of a plan. So that got me going. But I will say even more recently, probably just in the last 2-3 months, the wedding happened now about 4 months ago. But I'm still making the progress where I feel like, one, it's summertime. So I switched my cardio and I'm swimming. That was one of my youth activities. I was a swimmer. Loved it. Always have liked it. So I keep up with it when I can. No, I haven't had access to a pool all the time, but right now I do. And so I'm taking advantage of swimming as my cardio. And I'm in the gym now really on a regular basis 3 times a week. And that
Wow.
third day, I'm telling you, is making a difference.
Yeah.
I think the 2, I'm maintaining. I'm doing fine. But that third day a week is putting me now to the next level that I'm
Yeah.
starting to see some change. So that's been very encouraging for me because I will have to say, if I'm going to be vulnerable right now, I've been here 10 years, right? And the first day that I took my DEXA when I started here, and over the years that I keep doing my DEXAs, I've been the typical middle-aged female woman whose muscle has slowly started going down, that sarcopenia.
Mm.
Even though I've
Mm.
been lifting, I've been eating well, but the muscle mass has slowly kept kind of just settle. It's just ever so subtle.
Yeah.
While body fat slowly starts going up. And my weight hasn't changed a lot, but composition starts changing. And after 10 years of that, I was kind of like, okay, wait a minute. This has got to stop. And it wasn't out of hand, but I definitely saw the difference. And just to give you an example, my lean tissue, when I first started here, I'm 5'3". I'm not a very tall person. I was 93 pounds of lean tissue for a female. I got down.
That's legit. Yeah, anything close to 100 legit at 5'3".
Yeah, I came in pretty fit, but time took its toll, and it dropped down to about 85 pounds, 84, maybe 84, 85. And my body fat was starting to go up a little bit. And I just thought, I don't. I'm one of those people. I'm going to enter into my senior years. I want to be active. I want to be fit. I want quality of life.
Yeah.
And so with that, it just kind of said, okay, I know what to do. I just need to do it just like my patients got to do it,
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I switched that on and got that third day of training in. And now I'm back up to 88 pounds of
Wow.
lean. I'm not back to 93, but I'm trending back up again.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, was a success. I'm going in the right direction.
That's so powerful. I mean, most people think that when something starts to shift in the negative and things like that, they feel that they need to do this massive shift, and it just for you, you're like, just one day, add it on one day. And it's like, look at how powerful one day change. But I think also the power of accountability and support. Love Jason. Jason's also doing my coaching and my programming, and super smart. So shout out to Jason for all the fitness programming, just
Absolutely.
coaching all the coaches. He's the coach to the coaches with them. And, as a coach, I'll say this. I think as a coach or person that's like kind of in this stuff, we all need coaches too.
Mhm.
And I live the Cenegenics lifestyle as well as you, like where Jason's writing up my programming. I don't do anything with my programming. He does it. And it's hard because you work on qualities that you overlook when you're like doing your own thing. You know, you kind of, like you said, I'm going to do 2 days. I like I'll do this. I'll feel that whenever I create my programs, I'm like, I'm just going to work on my strengths and maybe a little bit on my weaknesses,
Yeah.
And then when I started really following the plan, and me and my fiance have a bunch of endurance events over the next 6 months, I realized like, wow, just following a plan that was made for me by someone else really shows where my weaknesses are. And there's that so much potential for growth. Two, I think the nutrition component, when you're having that be matched up with like a check-in, like the DEXA check-in, you start getting really serious too. And having that date, which is like that third point, it's like that date makes it real. Like you show up or you don't. Like, you got your wedding and it's like, all right, I'm not going to look good. This dress, it's not fitting the right way, whatever. Oh, shoot, I didn't do the work. And it really puts it back on you. You can't hide with your fitness. You can't hide with your nutrition when you've set yourself to that goal. And especially when you're under a lot of scrutiny too, with like a DEXA scan and stuff like that.
Right. It makes it real.
It makes
but
it
I
real.
will also say too, as far as my full program too, because I do like to share with the patients if they ask, is, I'm doing the hormone therapy as well. And I can say it makes a difference.
Could you speak about that? Like whatever you feel comfortable to speak about, like what has made the difference with the HRT or hormone replacement therapy for you?
So, I do the whole gamut of the hormone. So I do the testosterone cream. I like the cream independent of the estrogen cream, because I find that there is more, you can there are times where I feel like I don't want them together, because if I needed to switch one of them, you can't switch them independently. So if you have it compounded together, you can't, one changes with the other. So if you have just your estradiol and you have your testosterone cream independent, then you can gauge it based on your numbers or how you're feeling, or that type of thing. So I personally like them independent.
Wow.
And then the progesterone tablet or capsule, super easy. I tell you, I think I've had the best sleep in these maybe it's because my kids are out of the house. I don't know. But
and you just blame it on the kids.
I know. But I will say it does help with my sleep. I think it does.
That's awesome.
Plus I have some vitamins. I take some supplements.
You get your labs in the right way. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'd like to get the labs. That's a great check-in. Labs don't lie. They really kind of let you know how you're doing.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And here's my other question. So like, you've done the whole program. Obviously, these were your personal goals of like, hey, I got to look good. I got the stress. I do the labs. I do the HRT. I do the right supplementation. We're talking about lifespan longevity here, but there's a big part of this that most people forget: performance health. We've been talking about health for a little bit, but performance. Can we talk about performance for you for a bit? I know that you not only just do your training, but you also compete. Are you competing in like triathlons, or was that like kind of like your background of like the sports stuff that you kind of did, like endurance kind of sports?
I definitely competed when I was young. I've done some fun events through my adult years. So I've done, the 5Ks, the 10Ks. I did a marathon. I've done a couple half marathons. I've done some sprint triathlons.
What's the difference between like a triathlon and like a sprint one?
There's the distance.
Okay.
So, we have a mutual friend in Nate who is a full-on Ironman kind of guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So he does the big one, and I have no endurance for that. But probably more than anything, I don't think I have the mental capacity to do a full Ironman.
I think about it and I'm like, I've done a marathon before, but like I run 1 mile sometimes and I'm just like, that's it. I can't do another. Like I don't sometimes comprehend the mental frame of like, I did 26 of this. There's no way.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, my marathon was one and done. That was on my bucket list. I wanted to do it. I did it. And I have no particular interest in doing another one of that type of event. But I always do like to have something out there so that it makes training worth it. I'll be honest, nothing is on my horizon right now that I'm training for, but I would not be surprised at some point in time I'll think about something will come up A
Yeah.
friend of mine will say, hey, there's this 6 months from now, this is going on. You have an interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could be talked into it. But but yes, I think it's always good to have something out there dangling, so you're working towards something. I think it keeps
Yeah.
the motivation much more alive
No, I
when
love
that.
that, and I appreciate that, like that honesty, just because, like, I just wanted to clarify for the audience why I asked that question is because not only are you on the program as just a person getting longevity and lifespan, health span for your just normal day to day, but look at how further you can do it at whatever age that you could always compete for something down the line and perform at a world class level. Or at least a level above average, rather than just like, look, I'm just doing a couch to 5K, which I'm not docking on. I'm just saying, hey, you could probably not just do cuts to 5K, but you can like compete in that 5K. It's a race. You can really get after it,
Yeah.
especially being like on a program like Cenegenics or whatever option there may be, because there is the health span, the lifespan. But once you tap into a quality life, I think for people like us, once you tap into a quality life, you want to express it. You want to express it, and sometimes 6 months from now there's just something there and you're like, let's see what this body can do, let's see what
Yeah.
this mind can do. And I think expressing it with a performance aspect is just so powerful, because you realize, holy cow, not only am I healthy, or at least beyond healthy, right, above average, optimal, optimizing, whatever, I'm actually getting these crazy things done too, and you can just show yourself that it's really fun.
Well, beyond just it's a self satisfaction to still be able
Yeah.
to do some things. There's a lot to be said that actions speak louder than words. And so, I mean, I look at this. I want to be an example for my
Yeah.
kids, and have them to realize, hey, sports don't end when you're after high school or college. You can still be quote unquote athletic or just
Yeah.
active, or be participating in things for years and years to come. And
Yeah.
so, that's one of my motivational, things too, is just
You're,
to try to still be an example to
you're
others.
not the mom. You're not the mom. Yeah, you're not the mom that says, back in my day. No, you're the mom that like literally shows them. No, no, no. We're getting on the bike. Let me show you how it's done.
Yeah,
We're doing the swim. Let me show you how it's done. Not like, hey, back in my day, you used to swim. It's like, no, we swimming together right now. Let's go. And you beat your
that's
kids.
right. Now, I will have to say, some of my activities have changed over the years. You know, some things like golf has entered my world. That's not overly intense, but I do enjoy, again, getting outside, beautiful days, swinging the golf club, pickleball, fun. Everyone makes fun of that as being the like, that's the old person's. Let me tell you, there are some pretty intense pickleball players out there. So it just some things can change. So it's not necessarily, oh, woe is you because you can't do what you used to do. It's like, hey, you, what can you do and enjoy it?
Yeah.
It's just moving to, you just do things differently if need be. I
Yeah.
mean, I have to admit, I'm working against some bad knees now that, I didn't, they used to be great back in the day, but here we go. We got to just change the activity a little bit. And that's great. More hiking,
Yeah.
less running.
Yeah.
Um, so, but you can
No,
still
that's
stay
awesome.
in.
That's awesome. No, that's great. I think that's a good point. I think with the Cenegenics conversation, it's about aging gracefully, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily like, hey, do we live to 100 and 30 of those years, 70 to 100, you're sick the whole time, or is it like, hey, aging gracefully, you get to a certain age, I don't know when that is, but you age gracefully to it, and you got to live the life that you wanted to live. So with that being said, I kind of want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. Sherri, I really appreciate this conversation. Again, just out of curiosity, getting to know you a little bit more, I feel like this hour has just been profound for me. I got to learn a lot from you. So I appreciate that. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable, and being able to showcase like what you do here. I think the world needs more people like you. I think the world needs more things like Cenegenics. I think the world needs, especially in America, just kind of just this option to give the power back to the person in their health and stuff like that. But any closing remarks, anything else that you'd like to share to the audience before we close up here?
Great question. Well, thank you for having me. This has been fun. It really has been. I like this chatter, this little conversation back and forth. But I really would have to just say, it really is about improving quality of life, and to have that quality, it is because of quality of health. And it doesn't take much. A lot of times it's just tweaking. It's not necessarily completely changing your whole lifestyle. Sometimes it's very small things that will make big rewards down the road.
Yeah.
So everybody and anybody can take a step forward. It's like, what is one thing you can do today to make a better you? And we can all think of something. And so with that, you keep compounding that, you can have a whole new outlook and feel good.
Awesome. Well, there it is. All right, Cenegenics guest series with Sherri today, guys, for the macro perspective peeps. Keep coming back to these podcasts, guest series with Cenegenics. We're getting amazing folks like Sherri here, and we're getting a lot of other guests in the physicians. So keep a lookout. We'll have another episode out soon for you guys, but comment below any questions or concerns you guys have, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace. Sherri.